So, welcome to our first ABOO Leadership session of 2024. I'm Lucy McCarraher, founder of Rethink Press, Book Magic AI and the Business Book Awards, and host of the ABOO, A Book of One's Own network. I'm absolutely thrilled to have Lorraine Gannon, property investor and entrepreneur, award-winning businesswoman and author, with us today. Balancing a complex family life with a thriving career, Lorraine has propelled herself to the pinnacle of success through developing her innovative asset income model. And that is what we're going to have the privilege of hearing about today. Lorraine, welcome and thank you for sharing your knowledge and insights with us in this session.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lucy. Thank you for having me and welcome everybody. Nice to see some familiar faces. Thanks for joining me on this session today. All right, I'm going to get straight into the session. I've got lots of slides and stuff to share with you, and I've got lots of things I want to impart with you. So I'm going to crack straight on, as it were.
Lorraine, should we just say that if you've got questions, anybody, do put them in the chat or save them till the end, and we will have a Q&A session then.
Yes, definitely, please. I would like to get as much information over to you as possible, and then if you've got time we can hang around for questions, so for those that want to, that would be great. But I just want to kind of get through the presentation because it's lots of exciting stuff in here. I want to thank firstly Lucy for asking me to do this, because during the research of this project I've developed such a passion for what I'm about to share with you, and how women particularly can take on board the income asset model. So who is this for, and why should you be listening to this today? I want to just have a quick chat with you. Well, this is primarily for women who are in careers or in business. Obviously, this applies to men as well, and welcome to some of the men in the room. I've noticed a couple of you there. Definitely applies to men, but I want to kind of get over kind of some of the bias and the diversity that women can bring to property investing and income asset models in particular. So women who are looking to stop selling their time for money, obviously men as well, but struggling to earn their worth and realise the success in business. We're going to have a little deep dive into why that's really pertinent here as well. Also looking to grow their wealth, to retire on, or to create a legacy. Really important. Women didn't used to even save up for retirement for a long period of time, always relying on husbands' retirement plans and partners' retirement plans as well. So it's really important we think about these things. So what's new? What am I talking about, and what's new in this presentation? Well, why is the woman you are best placed to run your own asset business? Okay, and an income asset, and what are they, and which models suits you, and adding value, what asset classes can you control with your business, right? So there's my slides. Moving on, there we go. Right. Okay, so who am I? Well, I'm Lorraine Gannon. At the beginning of the presentation, don't know if any of you noticed, that I actually abbreviated my name to LA Gannon. All the statistics and the research out there suggests that actually male counterparts tend to have more authority and are more read, more widely publicised, get more PR, unfortunately. So I was playing about with you a bit then in the presentation, and just trying to give you an understanding of what kind of some of the diverse, some of the bias that's going on in the world for women. But I do try to stand out as a woman in my own family business with my husband and my children. We are family business owners. I'm an accountant, I'm a mum, I'm a wife, and I'm an award-winning business owner. So I won the Businesswoman of the Year 2023, and also the Northern Businesswoman of the Year. I've got the Silver Award, which is back there somewhere. A property portfolio owner of £9 million, and I'm an author of 3 different books. One, More Money, More Fun, was my book, and actually has been credited to be one of the best business books somebody's ever read on one of the reviews. My book, The Property Millionaire Method, is co-authored with Rick, and A Woman's Work's also co-authored with 9 other international businesswomen, all of which hit the best-selling status when they were there. So I hope that gives you some understanding of my authority here to speak to you today about why I think you should be looking at income asset models, because my background is in accountancy. But also at the moment, more women are starting businesses than ever before, and particularly for lifestyle reasons. So research by the Small Business Britain found that 39% of female entrepreneurs said that improving their work-life balance was the biggest catalyst for starting their business. And then there were more than 550,000 new companies started by women in 2022, more than twice as many in 2018. So really strong statistics at the moment for women who are trying to find a different way of working in their careers. Unfortunately, women choose service-based businesses as startups. Women tend to be less risk averse in business, and that makes them better business people. But when starting out, it also it guides them to a decision that perhaps might seem less risk at the beginning. So they tend to choose businesses that play on skills they already have, and also then tend to be more crafty, more creative in origin. So it's the cupcake business. Now, if you have a cupcake business, I'm not trying to put that down in any shape or form. I myself actually ran a chocolate fountain business for a while. I used to go to weddings, I used to do chocolate fountains, used to do all the kind of the cupcake stuff as well. What I found through that experience, essentially it became an events business, because the weddings, the events were all weekends. It didn't suit my lifestyle. It was very difficult to find a regular income on the back of that as well. And if you Google what women should do as businesses, the top Google result is from Teachable, and they come up with these 46 ideas. And I was really disappointed by the lack of I suppose technical, advanced business models, and all of these sort of things are very, what I would say, service-based, but sort of low risk as well. But the trouble with that is 48% artwork by women sells for 48% less than men at auction. I hope that enrages you. It enrages me. Women's work is undervalued even more so in our own businesses than in the workplace. Now, if we think about that in the workplace, we're protected by anti-discrimination laws, anti-pay laws, so that women's work isn't underpaid compared to men's. But the value out in the business world can be so subjective. So the right business model, what is it? And women need smart women. I want to work with all the women I work with are really smart, okay? I love working with women in our property investing business, but smart women need to choose the right business models to balance their life and create good profits. This is a decision you make right at the beginning of your journey. And I want to sort of highlight, I think there's lots of things we can learn from statistics. I think counterintuitively, what I would suggest is that before I read the statistics, I had no idea. If somebody said to me, who's the typical recipient of a heart attack, I would have a vision in my head of a white male, perhaps overweight, and that would be actually more women have heart attacks than men do. So I think we pick up stereotypes in our world because of the bias, as I mentioned at the beginning, in the press and in any kind of PR and any publications towards men. But actually women suffer much more due to stress, and particularly in the age ranges just when perhaps family life and careers are ramping up between the ages of 35 to 44. And the HSC did a report in 2007 that says 58% more women are stressed than men. And they gave the cases, which was 1,270 per 100,000 in men and 2,250 per 100,000 in women. So where we think women can cope perhaps a little bit more, perhaps as women we might be guilty of feeling that we're less stressed and we can cope more, the statistics are saying we're not. So I think we need to recognise that when we are getting into businesses, that we need to be very aware of how doing extra, going the extra mile, doing those hours, just doing that next client's job potentially could really harm your health. So inevitably, business owners, when they start their businesses and careers, they need more than 39 hours per week to make their incomes. Just when their business is taking off, just when women are starting to move into these businesses to create careers, they're then having to work more and more. And the trouble of that is 75% of unpaid work is done by women. So caring for children, caring for relatives, caring for the household as such, caring for is a lot of hours is done by women. Household chores, children, kind of duties, looking after the school kind of diary, all these things, 75% paid work is done by women. So if we're now starting to stack all of these things in the woman's corner, we've got to work out how we're going to have it all. And that was kind of the aim of this talk, is to have a look at having income-based assets can really mean that you're not relying on your time because of all these biases. Now, the solution really is to rethink the business model and move beyond service-based businesses. I'm not saying rip up the business that you have at the moment. I'm just saying that actually thinking about how you might transition in the next 5-10 years to a more asset-based income base is going to prove more successful for you and your health. Now, we know the impact of what women have in business. So despite the fact that women are moving towards service-based businesses, there are some results out there that show how good women are at business, and we shouldn't underestimate this. So a study of FTSE 350 companies found where women make up more than a third of senior roles have net profit margins, wait for it, 10 times greater than companies with no women at this level. Now, we should be shouting about our own success in this and actually publicising it more, but this is a reality, and that was a report done by McDo and Fitzsimmons Women Count 2020. We know the impact of women in business because gender diverse companies are 25% more likely to have above average profits than those with very few women. So you count in business. We know that women private technical companies, privately run tech companies, so tech companies traditionally a male dominated industry, earn 35% higher return on investments for their VC capital funders. So even when we're underrepresented, when VC companies tend not to invest so much in women businesses show a higher return. Where there are more women in VC capital companies as well, the returns tend to do better. I can't find a statistic that goes against this. Now, my views and observations from students is why are women not coming into property investing more? I know I've got some students in the room from our property investing courses, but we tend to be around 75% male and 25% women. Now, what I love working with all of the women in our groups, but my view is that they lack confidence, certainly coming into the programme, not when they're in the programme, but they lack confidence coming into a male-dominated model. There are concerns over becoming the main breadwinner. And there is also a concern over, will my family suffer as a result of becoming this success in business, this kind of self-sabotage mentality? Well, don't fear, I've got some more evidence for you. I didn't want to produce a presentation full of statistics, but at the same time, I really wanted to inspire you that actually you have the ability to do all of this stuff, and that all the research backs up how powerful it can be for you. Now, when women are in equal relationships with equal rights, and there is more sharing of that 75% free work, women are less resentful and they're less exhausted in these relationships. Resentfulness is one of those trigger words for divorce. Men are happier and healthier when partnered with women who are sharing equal rights. So they might moan, but they're generally more happy. They smoke less, they drink less, they take fewer drugs, they suffer less of mental health, and they're less likely to get divorced. They have better relationships with their children. And despite running a successful business, women that are sharing the responsibility in becoming breadwinners, children display fewer behavioural difficulties and do better at school. And men are less likely to be violent to partners and children, which in turn reduces the risk of children becoming violent later in life. So this is an everyone wins scenario. So if you're worried about stepping out of this old service-based model and taking into a new arena, becoming a more property investor, becoming an asset-based business, then take courage, because the rewards are not negative, but they're positive to everybody that surrounds you. So tell me what you want, what you really, really want, as a few famous ladies said, the Spice Girls. So what do you want from a business? What can you get? Well, the income asset model came from my experience of many years of working as an accountant. I've spent 25 years, I think. I'm hoping it's not more than that, doing other people's accounts, looking at their books, and looking what makes a business tick. Excuse me, my voice is going. So I've looked at how businesses run. I used to spend, I've worked for chocolate companies who produced Toblerone. I've worked for cider companies that produce cider. I've worked for chicken factories that produce chicken Kievs. I've also worked in quarries that produce tarmac and stone, and I've worked for train engineering companies. So I have a really diverse portfolio of companies that I've worked for and analysed their profits. What I've come to realise in that time is that any kind of business that has an asset-based business, the train companies had a huge pool of 100 odd engineers that they used to employ, keep in one central train shed in the middle of Derby, and they would then subcontract those train engineers out to subcontracts. So if there was a European tram, if the Virgin train tender came up, that asset base was being leveraged across everything. They were retaining the knowledge. I worked for a quarry company, had a massive asset in a big quarry, and it's that asset delivery income into the business day in, day out. But unfortunately, it didn't apply this to my business thinking when I got into business. So I started, my husband and I, we used to run pubs, and we had a chain of pubs at one stage. And when my son was born in 2004, he was diagnosed with cerebral palsy. I remember the Monday morning I went to see the consultant, and the consultant said, "I don't think your son will ever walk." Devastated, I walked out of that consultancy room and just realised that my life had changed overnight. And as a result of that, we did change our lives. We turned them upside down. We left our careers. We went back into running pubs, and we thought that would be the ideal thing. But what we hadn't appreciated was the lifestyle that it was going to give us. That when we were busy at the weekends, on the Saturdays, the Sundays, that there was no childcare. And very often our son would be sat in a high chair in the middle of a catering kitchen while we were serving 40 and 50 meals. So when you're looking at your business, I really want you to think about the lifestyle and the outcome of it to then match it to what you want to do with it. Very often if more women are setting up because of lifestyle reasons, you need to think about the lifestyle that business is going to give you. As soon as you make the decision to start that business, the trajectory of it is set really, or you need to do quite a lot of work to move away or into a different model. So it was in 2000, I think 12, or perhaps a bit earlier, I went to the franchise show, fed up with the model of, I'd actually by that time moved into a government role. I was working for DEFRA. And the politics of it wore me out. Interestingly, I was in that gap, 35 to 4 years old. I was coping with a disabled child. By that stage, I had another daughter. And I was trying to find a lifestyle that was more than that it was more than just going to pay the mortgage, that it was more than just sort of getting by. So I entered the franchise model, frustrated by the chocolate fountain experiment, frustrated by, I even sold paddling pools for £10 on eBay. And my biggest customers, interestingly, were dog owners because they had like solid floors. But I digress. I sold one of those a day. I made £10 a day. So I've tried lots of different ways to make money to support my family. But when I entered the franchise exhibition in Birmingham, as an accountant, I could have quite easily chosen an accountancy practice model, a bookkeeping model. But I realised that would mean I'd need 100 clients, that'd be driven by the deadlines of those clients, that those 100 clients would phone me up, they'd be last minute, they'd let me down, that I didn't really want to do 100 tax returns on the 31st of January. So by making the decision and looking into the future a little bit about what the outcome of that was, decided that wasn't for me. I actually went into a consultancy model, which in hindsight, joining the Dots Up was quite smart because I joined a network of other consultants. So I wasn't the only one's work that was contributing to my income. I was able to partner with other consultants. They would do the consultancy work. I would just sell it to my clients. And then once I'd got a client, I could then sell them a different consultancy package after that. So I came to the point of leverage, being able to use other people's time, other people's assets to create this income. So the sustainability of an income asset model kind of introduced me to property, the idea that when you were asleep, you were earning money. And I think along the way, there were breadcrumbs of this all the way through my career and how I discovered this. Now, if we look at this model here, I've got a recurring income at the bottom, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that security of income day in, day out. Across the side here, I've got profit and break even. And what I noticed is that with memberships and IP and tangible assets, you can create, recurring income. The break even and the profit tends to be quite low. So you're competitive, you've got customer acquisition, you've got to buy your customers, you've got to get them into your memberships. And then once you're above that, then you start to hit some profit. And then the customer can cancel at any time. So it's often a difficult model to keep recurring. Oh, where's my slides gone wrong here? There we go. So high frequency services. I've got the next box here where we're looking at how customer stays with the business. They have a unique high skill and demand, but the recurring is shifting now. There's not so much recurring business. It's kind of find a customer, find a customer, find a customer all the time. You're having to keep repeating the process over and over again. You tend to get high profits. You have to have something unique that you can kind of help people with and solve a problem and have high demand or high skill in that area. Oh. My slides are bumping up and down here. So, and then we have in the bottom kind of this one-off service and product, easily copied, tends to be low profit because of that, tend to compete on price, and there's high competition and customers are price sensitive in this area. There we go, get there in the end. And then asset-based rental businesses. So the recurring frequency of these is high. There's high demand because it tends to be quite hard to get into this area. So you've got big assets that are costing quite a lot of money, quite difficult for people to replicate, to take a slice of that. So if you want to go and rent a room in a property for a month, or if you want to go and stay in a holiday home for 2 weeks, it's quite difficult to go and buy the asset with that and compete on the price. So people are accepting they're going to have to rent it to get that service. So that income from assets is the most effective way to get financial freedom without having to sell my time, because all of those things I've just shown you are asset-based income models. Because the asset does the work for you. We don't want our time to be doing the asset. So we need to create the asset that can be tangible, it can be a real thing, or it can be intangible. I have a girlfriend who has a very successful exhibition company. She actually hires out stands for exhibitions. It's very difficult for people to suddenly decide that they're going to invest in that, buy exhibition stands to put in their business. When they're bespoke, you turn up to an event, everybody's got different ones, they don't fit in with a scheme. So she does very well because of that uniqueness of her asset. So it doesn't always have to be property based, but I want you to start thinking about how easy replaceable it is and how unique the service it is. Now in property, we have another level of this asset income. Property lends itself to lots of different assets. And most people might think, well, if I start investing in property, then I'm in this asset income model. That's not necessarily the case. Now, single lets, what we would call a one-family home, you come and rent a house out, has high recurring income. Income comes in each and every month, but it tends to be low profit because there's only one family, there's only one income stream coming in. There's a second type. People large developments. They're going to build 6 or 7 houses. Tends to be extremely high risk. It's not something we recommend anybody does as a starter strategy because of the risks involved. You, as an accountant, I'm very cynical because costs go up, timelines go out, and the eventual price you sell at, it drops. So your profit gets squeezed on 3 sides, and it's not much fun. A lot of people, when they're starting out, start with flips or doer-uppers, as they call them, and also deal sourcing. So they find a deal, property, and they sell it to a friend or a mate who pays them for that sourcing of that property deal. This is like a job, very much like a job. And I did this when I first started out. When Ben was born, I was inspired by the Sarah Beanie effect, as it were. She used to waddle around 9 months pregnant on a building site with a hard hat. And if I thought she can do it, I can do it. And whilst in my pregnancy, I bought a house and I decided to do it up. But at the end of that process, I ended up with about £40,000 of the profit. Now that's a lot of money to make as a profit. But the penny dropped for me at the end of that period when I suddenly realised I earned, I think, £36,000 at the time as an accountant, a chief accountant at DEFRA, which is quite a lot back then. But I needed to use all of that money to replace my income. And then I had to go and find another house. And as those houses were increasing in price, I then needed more deposit. So it became this vicious circle, but I actually then couldn't take that money out to then suffice my income needs. I needed to find an income somewhere else. But high cash flow strategy, so we would call the flips lumpy money. What we really want to free our time to create that financial freedom, create the assets. So we want high cash flow, and we have different strategies in property. They're called HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, MUFBs, multiple unit freehold blocks, and SA, serviced accommodation. I'm not here today to teach you all these different strategies, but I want to tell you that these have multiple streams of income. They have high profit, and they're the ideal for creating recurring income that replaces your cash flow. So why I chose property is because the rental is 24/7. I liked property as well, but why I believe women should choose it. The UK banking system and the economy is built on mortgages. The property does all the qualifying for finance. You don't have to go and pitch like you would a venture capital company to go and get a mortgage. The banking regulation was introduced to not discriminate against females. And that's very much so with mortgages. The property does most of the talking for you. Women are less risk averse, and property has been seen as safe as houses literally for decades. And women do their homework because we're less risk averse. We tend to do our numbers a lot better, a lot more efficient, and we tend to get the numbers part right, which is key to buying the right property rather than an emotional property lemon. So what we see as the formula for property, the asset income model, is that monthly asset income equals your monthly repeating costs. The irony of money kind of doesn't escape me in that in accountancy, we're taught about month ends, year ends, quarterly, matching of profits to time, the accruals basis. So time and money are very much intuitively linked, and everything we look at, if we look at financial calculations like return on investment is an annual return divided by the investment value. So time is in there. So all of these things, money is very much part of time and how you can get there. Now, the unique thing I want you to think about with property, it is not like going to the bank and saying, I'm going to invest £100,000 in shares. Please, can you lend me £100,000? I think most bank managers would laugh at you because you can't do that. But property has this unique leverage that you can borrow against, and you can invest 25,000. Typically in buy-to-let, you'll get 75% to invest from the bank. So they will give you money to buy property, to buy investments. You can't go and buy shares. You can't say, I'm going to go buy £100,000 of gold. You can't say, I'm going to go buy £100,000 worth of crypto. Will you lend me 75,000? The business models are based on the ability of the market to move up and down. And why is that? Because property is unique in being able to add value. I could buy £100,000 worth of Apple shares today, but I can't increase the value of those shares. I can't tell Tim Cook to go and create a new product. I can't buy £100,000 of gold and tell the gold market to increase its prices. I can't tell the crypto to do the same, but I can buy £100,000 of property. I can do it up. I can renovate it. I can increase the floor space. I can change the planning permission. I can improve the tenancies. I can do lots of things that add value to property. And that's the difference. It's the key to be able to borrow funds from investors or joint venture finance if you don't have any funds yourself. Because the moment you can add value to something, then you can then get the initial investment back and then go on and repeat this process. So what if you already have a business? I did mention this before. I would say it's and, not or. Don't abandon your business. I'm not saying rip up that shareholder certificate or that company's house and corporation certificate. Don't. It's definitely an and. It's move towards an income-based model and then see how quickly you can get there. It's interesting that having it all as a landlord is enshrined in legislation. Landlady isn't there yet, but I'm hopeful that one day we will get it there. So if you're going to do this, then one thing I know is that houses listed by female estate agents sell for higher prices. So we do a much better job in real estate, in property. And just to give you a bit of history, really, to empower you and get you a bit mad, we haven't had the right to buy property for very long at all. In the 12th and 19th century, married women weren't considered separate legal entities from their husbands at all. In 1870, the Married Property Act was passed, which allowed wages earned by a woman, as well as gifts or inheritance she received after marriage, to be treated as her own. In 1882, this extended to before being married. And then as late as 1975, after the Sex Discrimination Act was passed in 75, we were then allowed to have bank accounts. And from this point on, you could open a bank account in your own name. Unfortunately, reality was that until the late 70s, it was the practice of demanding a male guarantor for a woman's mortgage application, and that eventually died out. So if that's not a reason enough to get you mad and worked up, then I don't know what is. In 2022, there was a 2.8% increase in female-only mortgages, but not enough. Unfortunately, because women tend to earn less in the workplace, because of the pay gap, a woman needs on average 12 times their annual salary to be able to buy a home in England, while men just need over 8 times. So the job is not done, ladies. We need more women in property, and we need to address the housing crisis. I believe that we can do it, and that we can really move it forward. Arguably, getting into property investing is easier than having to afford your own home, because once you've achieved that, then all the qualification criteria are based on the rentable value of the house. Sorry, just looking at the time. Just some research by Lancy in 2016 said that women with property inheritance rights earn up to 3.8 times more than those without. If you don't mind, just for timing, I'll move on from that one. So this was the house that I did up when I was pregnant with my son, 35 Winfield Road, £40,000. Bless him, he was in NICU for 4 weeks. So in between feeds, I used to pop back here and scrape a bit of wallpaper and then paint it up. But really, this isn't the message. It didn't hit the spot. It was lumpy money. I didn't have enough to do what I wanted to do. So how do we win with property? Well, a lot of my students will have seen this already, but this is a house graph, the house price graph. Now, essentially, house prices go up with inflation because essentially their land built and their people's labour and their materials, all of those things go up with inflation. And what we find is that even with bumps and lumps, we have crashes. And when we have the 2008 crash, when we had Brexit slump, And COVID, everybody thought it would go pear-shaped, and it didn't. It went up about 20%. Seriously made about 700,000 during COVID because of just the house price increases alone. So you can see that if you zoom out, you don't get those lumps. And it takes on average 10 years for house prices to double in the UK. And a house cycle is roughly 18 years. So even if you buy at the wrong time, if you buy and hold and you're buying for cash flow, you can't really go too far wrong. So let's just have a quick look at some leveraged examples. And then I just want to sort of say, why do people get rich with property? And it's this power of leverage, because if you have £100,000 deposit, and that may or may not be even your money, it might be borrowed from a friend or family member or an investor that you've managed to convince it's a great deal to invest in. If you can borrow 300,000 from the bank, and you should then have a £400,000 house. If you've got £1 million, then you can do a similar sort of thing. You can do the £300,000 mortgage, £3 million mortgage, and buy a £4 million worth of property portfolio. So leverage helps you get more. But the real power of investing in property is that if we did all of that, we should end up in 10 years, in 18 years, depending on how long it takes for property prices to double, with a portfolio worth 800,000, because your mortgage doesn't double. It actually gets inflated away by inflation. If you do that with a big portfolio, you end up with £8 million worth of portfolio. So you go from 4 million to 8 million. So the power of property is to be able to double money that you don't even have or you owe the bank. It doubles the effect of that. And that's why the rich get richer, because they use leverage. Whatever money they have, they then leverage it up, and then they let inflation take care of it. So we take a nest egg, a lump of money that we may borrow from investor, from other people. We invest it in rundown property. We try where we can not to do the work ourselves. We create the beautiful product, which women are really good at. And then we take the refinance. We refinance the money out this property and go on again. But this house should be laying you the golden egg. It should be laying you income each and every month, every day, every minute, to give you that income that you need. Some quick examples. I'm going to whiz through these. This is a lease up purchase option property. It's a HMO, £945 a month. I don't think I've been in there for about 3 years. Rick's probably been there. HMO, £3,185 a month, double. That was done in lockdown. I did about 25,000 steps one day walking around that property, refurbishing it and dressing it all out with cushions. And then just some case studies to inspire you. Our own Victoria Miller, who she invests in North Wales. She invests in high-end luxury serviced accommodation. And she managed, her business is generating £22,500 per month. And she used to be a full-time social worker. So a very stressful job. Some of our other women in our program, Celia, she was a school teacher. She gave up her job recently. She's got 2 properties. She works with joint venture investors, managed to obtain finance. And then we've got Claire also. She's left her job. She's doing a lot to help homeless people as well. Steph, who's doing a flat conversion. She's down in the home counties, I think, from memory. There's Victoria again. We've got Faye, who invests in HMOs and also in service accommodation in holiday lets. She's also just written a book about positivity, doing really well. And then we've got Ruth, who was a GP. Bless her, she invested in property so that her daughters didn't have to work as many hours as she does. One of her daughters is at university studying to be an architect. And I think I can't remember the number, but she vaccinated something like 100,000 people whilst also being a GP and a property investor. So she's my hero, I think. Mitheela's got a young family. She invests in HMOs up north remotely. And Vanessa is an IT consultant. So all these women, regular women, just investing in property and doing really well. And coming to a close, just want to acknowledge some of the fantastic books and ideas that I've had along the way. So thank you, Lucy, for A Book as One's Own. Also, if you've not read The Authority Gap, get it. It's just amazing. You'll want to throw it across the room because it'll annoy the hell out of you. But just the most amazing book. And also Invisible Women is eye-opening what we don't know about ourselves as women, I think. So I highly recommend those to you. So if you want me to help you, if you want to get in touch, I'm quite happy to donate. I don't think I've got stock to donate all my books to you, but I'd happily send you one free book in the post. If you drop me an email at this email address with your address, choose which book you want, and I will get them sent out to you, or the office will help me do that. We also have property boot camps. If you really have been inspired, want to get into it, then that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. And if you're interested in joining a Women in Property and Business Mastermind for 12 months, I'm looking to start something in March. So I hope that was useful. There we go. Back to you, Lucy.
Lorraine, thank you so much. That was absolutely fascinating and so insightful and inspiring. And I'm very grateful that you put my book alongside Marianne Siegart's and Invisible Women, because they are amazing books, and I absolutely think everybody should read them.
Yeah, definitely.
No, that was really, really fascinating. And I'm sure that you will have inspired, and I can see people already putting in the comments, amazing session, really interesting, brilliant, Lorraine, thank you. So shall we, does anybody have any questions for Lorraine? Because please either put your hand up or put something in the comments. What do we want to say to Lorraine, apart from brilliant and wonderful and thank you? Anybody got any specific
Shall I stop sharing? And
yes, stop. Yes, that's a good
there we go.
idea.
See some faces.
So Lorraine, I want to ask you one question, if I may,
Yeah.
which is what is the situation with the rental property environment at the moment, and why are so many landlords getting out, and is this and making it so difficult for people to find rental properties? I know people who've literally given up work to find a new flat to live in because it's so
Oh,
difficult.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. It breaks my heart actually how bad it is. We get maybe 3-4 inquiries a day through our property training business. Every day, people desperate to find somewhere to live. There is a real housing shortage. I didn't go into the numbers, but there was a report done by Mary Hewitt University that said we need 340,000 homes a year. The government adopted a manifesto to say 300,000 a year. They realise they're nowhere near that. This is each and every year, but cumulatively we're doing about 230, 220, depending on which stats you look at. So we have a gap of about 70,000 homes a year, which is just building up. We can't get enough property on our books to fulfill needs. We're fully occupied at the moment, which means rents are going up because people literally come in and offer above the advertised price because they want the property so desperately. But to answer your question, why are landlords selling up? Number one, because they're hitting 70 and over. There's something about, I think, going into the 70s plus that makes people want to have a different quality of life, do different things.
Interesting.
Yeah, and also tax. So the government changed the tax regime back 4 or 5 years ago. That meant if you had a mortgage, you could no longer claim mortgage interest rate relief against your tax. And actually, they add it back to your tax now. So the only way to avoid that tax is to sell your property and then buy new property in a limited company. There's a school of thought that people are doing that, but there's also a school of thought that people are just like, okay, I'm out. And typically single lets aren't cutting the mustard at the moment. If you think the average single let generates 3.7% interest rental yield a year, and the interest rates are 5%, you don't need to be a mathematician to work out there's a loss there of 1.3. So yeah.
That's really fascinating. Paige, do you want to ask Lorraine a question?
Yeah, so thank you, Lorraine. I actually jumped on Rick's thing on, I think it was on Thursday.
Yes.
So quite good. So I had a question. So I own a house with my mum. She lives in Gloucester. She lives in that house in Gloucester. We're looking to sell that property. And I rent in London. I'm sick of renting because it's just too much. And also obviously people are selling up, and that's the problem I've had. And I've moved 3 times within the last 12 months.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So I'm looking to move up north. My question is I have money to, I'm scared of investing in property, but again, this whole thing of I just want a better lifestyle and things like that. So my question is, should I move to up north and buy a house first and then get into property, or because I own a property already, should I just get into buying a property, getting into investing first and then
Yeah. Well, I mean, it depends, and you shouldn't really let the investing dictate your lifestyle. You know, think of the outcome, think of where you want to be, what results do you want? Do you really want to live up north? Because there's no point going to live up north because the numbers say you should. So I don't want you to end up in a place you don't want to be. That's really important. But I think the fact that you already own a property is great. One of the big risks that mortgage lenders have is that if you own a property and you suddenly become homeless, and if you've got tenants in there, you're likely to want to kick them out and live there yourself. That then means that they're then relying on your income to pay the mortgage. So mortgage companies underwrite their risk in 2 ways. One, how likely is it as a tenant to pay their rent? And 2, how likely is it the owner occupier will pay the rent? So if you've got your own home, then they're much more comfortable to work with you as an investor. So that kind of balances out their risk for them, and you become that layer between the tenant and the mortgage anyway as an investor. So mortgage companies, I think, are on a good thing. They're on a good number because of all the way that they protect their investment. So I think you can get into investing. I would definitely, I think particularly if you're looking to buy your next home somewhere, I would try and go with more of an investment mindset rather than an emotional, I want to live here. You know, that might sound contradictory to just what I just said, but live where you want to live, find somewhere that suits you, but maybe find somewhere with a granny annex, right? So you can let it out with a holiday let income, or don't tell the lender that's what you intend to do, but tell them when you do it to make sure that you're doing it right. But try and start out with the end in mind of, like, potentially in the future, I've got these options with this property.
And so with that, because also like I think a big thing with regards to going up north is because I also need to then buy a property for my mum. So
Yeah.
buy 2 properties, if that makes sense. So, but I guess listening to your talk, I guess if you're building in your property portfolio, then that would, I guess, give you leverage to then buy more properties, your home.
Yeah, so you always want to be adding value to property. Now, it's not a given. Anybody can refurb a property, and you can spend hundreds of thousands on it. You only need to look at the price of tiles, don't you? You can have a wooden floor, you can have an MDF floor. Now, most people would want the real wood floor, but will the MDF floor suffice in actually getting you from A to B and getting this house up and let and rented out to tenants and creating you an income? So you do have to value engineer into your projects, but at the same time, you can create value in the overall property. Something that a valuer, a mortgage company's assessor will come out and say, yeah, this property is worth X and it will rent for Y. And you can do that. So does that answer your question? I think you need to put value into your property so that you can then refinance it out at a later stage. And if you do that all the way through, you won't go wrong.
Yeah.
That's great. Thanks, Lorraine.
Okay.
That's a really great answer. Stephanie, you were next with your hand up.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you so much, Lorraine. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah.
Yes,
Loud and
thank you.
clear.
your presentation, Lorraine. I also joined the call with yourself and your husband, and I'm looking forward to starting on the 6-week program.
Brilliant. Yes. Yeah, my favourite.
So I work full time and I'm keen on, embarking on a property investment journey. And I just wanted to ascertain, working full time, how many hours realistically would I need to commit to building or, starting up a property portfolio?
Yeah. You need to do, and it's all about activity at the beginning. So start well. There's a whole bunch of research suggesting, that if you're starting something new, do loads of work at the beginning, as much as you can. But really, at the beginning, you don't need to spend that much time. But the more you can, the better, because you'll get momentum. And momentum is really key for long-term success. So do 2 viewings a week, every week. And I don't care what you go and view. There's nothing about viewing a property that you don't learn something in that process. You gain confidence, you meet people, you have conversations, loads and loads and loads of bonuses to just viewing property. Okay, so do that, and then you need to start working out how to stack deals. Now, stacking deals in itself is a skill that you'll learn on the 6-week program, but you need to do that quickly. It's okay, so you need to put a couple of hours a week aside to be able to stack your deals, to know whether or not you're going to put offers in on them. And that's it, really. So really, with a full-time job, you could probably do this. If a couple of viewings take you half an hour, 40 minutes on a Saturday morning, you've got maybe 3-4 hours worth of work. And I think most of us, if we're honest with ourselves, is certainly some Netflix or something we can start watching to get that done. But Stephanie, if you're a busy woman, what's the saying? Give a busy woman a busy job or something. If you want something done,
if you want something done, yeah, give it to a busy person.
Yeah, definitely. So I think you'll get this. Looking forward to seeing your results.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Lorraine. Maxine, you were next. Can you unmute?
Yeah. Hi, Lorraine. Thank you so much for today. So I am a home owner and have had interest in buy to let, but I don't want to sell my own property to release equity. So what is the approach to start with going to a mortgage lender for a buy to let, and is the market right for that kind of lending right now? And what would my outlay be, for example?
Yeah, so it depends on your circumstances, Maxine. I think you need a bit more, you need to research around this a bit more now that I haven't been able to go into today some of the strategies that you can use that doesn't necessarily need to even buy a property. There's something called leases and potentially a purchase option, which means that you can lease it today and purchase in the future. Now, if you can get in, the market at the moment is so turbulent that there's lots of creativity that can be used and lots of financial instruments that can be used that aren't necessarily get a deposit, get a mortgage, buy a property, which I haven't been able to go in today. So there are other things that you can use. But if you do own your own home, if you do have some equity in it, you can speak to a mortgage broker who can potentially give you top slice it, give you some equity release out of it. I actually released £40,000 out of our main home to buy that franchise way back when, and Lloyds Bank actually lent me the 40,000 against my business plan, but they secured it as a second charge on our main residential home. So property's a little bit easier that you can release money like that way, and then you can use it for deposit. But you don't necessarily need large sums of money either.
Yeah,
that's great.
Okay,
we've got time for one last question. Mandy, you've had your hand up, so let's Mandy, your question will be the last.
Okay, thanks. Hi, Lorraine.
Hi.
Rick was my coach a long time back.
I recognise your name. I thought you were. I've just been reading. I'm sure you're a testimonial on our website as somewhere as well.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So I think I'm coming at it from the opposite perspective, which is we have a portfolio of HMOs. We were very, very clear at the time that we didn't want to self-manage, even with the Rick's fantastic software system. So we went down the agent route, and over the last few years, we've been hit by rates changes, legal changes, increasing regulation, etc. And the bottom line is two things. We have an agent who is really, really good, works her socks off, keeps it fully tenanted, but we still don't make a significant profit because of all the other on costs. And so I suppose I have two questions, which is, one, what do you actually consider is a reasonable rate for an agent to charge working with HMOs, given that we want to be as passive as possible, so we have the kind of full management package. And two, I am now at the age where I'm also planning my exit strategy. I'm not 70 yet, but I'm looking at actually divesting and moving into more passive assets. So we're looking at getting rid of our properties, and it's really a question of how do you do that when you've got an ongoing full tenanted portfolio? Because we pride ourselves on being really good landlords. We have 25 tenants that we look after. We look after our properties. We respond quickly, and I want to make sure that that continues, even if when we sell them. But I don't know the route to do that.
Yeah, some great questions. So I think a good agent is as good as a good agent costs, which is a bit of a cop-out, I know, but I'm wareful of advising you to go and find an agent that's a couple of % cheaper when actually it costs you a lot more in the long run. We've always advised our students against going down to the bare minimum in terms of agency costs, because what you end up doing is that agent then doesn't look after your property. If they know they're going to get 15% somewhere else and you've beat them down to 12, they've got 3% margin. They're going to make up what that student or that tenant in somebody else's property. It's just human behavior. So I think you can falsify your results by doing that. I think the thing to think about is if you are offering a good service, is actually to increase your rents. I know we as landlords, we want to increase and we want to keep our rents and our tenants happy. Some respects, you don't do them a lot of favors if you price them out of the market, because what ends up happening is, when you do come to retire and sell, they'll then have a price jump. They then got to adjust their lives in that respect. It's much easier to give a gradual price increase over a period of time. So I would say actually flip that for you a little bit more and go and have a look more at your rents and just see how you can improve that. And at the same time, is there any quick wins in terms of being able to add any extra value that doesn't cost you a lot, that can kind of soften that blow for tenants as well? So put Netflix on the TVs, those sort of things. I don't know what your setup is. In terms of exit, I think you should come back into the mix, because I think the community that we have at New Era, because I think actually a good exit plan for you would be to align with somebody who might take over your management and then eventually buy in the future. So you could plan a very secure exit for those 25 tenants. Your new manager could get to know them. They could take over the running of the properties and then eventually buy them from you, perhaps in a structured way.
Are you thinking of maybe a purchase lease option sort of arrangement?
Yeah, an arrangement with you, that actually would give you some security. You don't really want to be traipsing around the high street agents selling your properties, because you're going to get picked off for the cherry picking. You want somebody to buy the portfolio and really take on that relationship. So I would actually advise coming back into the community and working with some of our masterminders that particularly, I can't remember where you're based.
Not far away from you. We're in Leamington and our properties are in Leamington and Coventry.
Okay.
The Leamington one we want to keep because we own that personally, and we've kind of thought that might be something that we've got to hand over to our kids. So our portfolio in Coventry is in a company. So we've got 3 HMOs, and we've also got a parcel of land that's actually on a separate title that's got planning permission for development. But we've never had, when we costed it out at the current prices for development, it wasn't actually worth doing, but it's got planning permission and we've done the groundwork. So with that planning permission is is
Yeah, sounds
valuable.
great. Sounds like, you know, I'm sure I can see a few students in this room probably writing your name down. Brilliant. Thank you, Mandy. I think
Okay.
we've reached time, haven't we, Lucy?
Yes, I think we have. Thank you so much, Lorraine. There's one question that several people are asking is where
Okay.
can they access your training? So
Oh.
we've got your LinkedIn and your Facebook links in the
Yeah.
chat, but is there somewhere they can go to find your training directly?
Yeah, so newerapropertytraining.co.uk is our main website. We do have a free program for 28 days. That's the VIP Academy. If you go to courses on the main website, we are actually having our website designed, so don't judge me, but we're getting there. So if you go into courses, if you go into the VIP Academy, that's although it says VIP, it's our kind of our entry product. That's 28 days for free. Come out and hang out in the community and just get to know us at New Era. So it'd be great to have you on board. I love the ladies. Don't we, Cammy? I can see you there. I can't see anyone else, but yeah. Yeah, we love the ladies. I gravitate towards the ladies in the room, make sure they're doing well. So we'll be well looked after.
Fantastic. Lorraine, thank you so much for your presentation, which was brilliant and insightful and wonderful, and also for answering these questions in such an authoritative, credible and generous way. So thank you all very much, everybody who's been on this call. You've been a fantastic audience, and Lorraine,
Yeah.
I think the link will be available if anybody needs to re-watch it.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for sharing your time with me.
Thanks so much, everyone. See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.